Welcome back, everybody, to the Rocky Midlife podcast. And I have an incredible guest all the way from California today. And what's even better is she is a return guest. And I know how many people loved hearing Dr. Cari Schaefer's information and tips and wisdom last time we had her on the show. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have her on today to dance around the topic of your libido at menopause. Before we get into that, welcome back, Dr. Cari. It's fabulous to have you again.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's going to be a really good one. Looking forward to this.
It's so important.
It is, it is. But before we go down that little rabbit hole, I would love you just to remind our audience who you are, what you do, how you got here. In fact, before we should, I should actually at least say to everyone that Dr. Cari is actually the founder of Your Menopause Midwife, and she has over 24 years of experience in being a women's healthcare provider. So this lady is so knowledgeable. But please tell us how you ended up in this space, talking to midlife women and even about this topic.
Yeah. So my first health challenge started when I was 17. And I spent, it's a long, involved story. I think you and I might have talked a little bit about it, but
Yeah.
I've spent most of my, from 17 until into my 40s dealing with a chronic health issue. And by the time I hit around 47, 48, I was feeling a lot better. I was like, yay, I'd fallen in love. I was engaged to be married and life was really good. And then it was recommended by one of my health practitioners that I went to this detox retreat. And I didn't usually like those kind of drastic things, but I thought, I'm feeling better. I put on weight because I was always underweight. And I'm going to give it a try. And he said, yeah, come because I'm going to be teaching. You can hear me teach and then I can check you and it'll be perfect. I'm like, great. So I go to this detox retreat and it completely takes me apart and sets my health so far back. But when I get back I'm on the plane coming home and they turn off the air in the plane and they keep it closed up and it's getting hotter and hotter. And little baby is starting to cry and like people are getting really agitated. And I start to feel panicky and almost like I'm going to have a panic attack. And, I've never experienced that before. So I
Oh, that
get
would
off
be
that
frightening.
flight. It was very frightening. So I get
Yeah.
off that flight and I have another flight and I'm like nervous on that flight. And then I get back home and I start noticing I get nervous when I go into elevators. I get nervous when I go into bathrooms. Like I'm basically experiencing a kind of claustrophobia. And I'm like, what is going on? And then one day I thought it was all just because the detox had kind of messed my brain up. And then one day a client comes in and she starts telling me about these weird symptoms she's having and she starts literally listing like, can't get into elevators, check. I can't get into the back seat of a two-door car, check. I can't go into parking garages, check. And I'm like, and she goes, Cari, I Googled it and they said it could have something to do with perimenopause. Have you ever heard of that? And I was like, what? And that was the moment that I knew that I needed to do a whole lot of research. And so I kind of dove down the rabbit hole and I learned that so much of the education I received was lacking.
Mm.
And so much education that was out there was lacking. And I believe in our previous podcast, I talk about the stories that kind
Yeah.
of pushed me in about hear medical doctors talk and the horrific things they said. So you want to know those stories, you want to go watch
Go
that
revisit. Yes.
visit it. But basically that's what started the process. And as I've been in the journey of learning about it and understanding, I've just sort of watched not only my own journey, but watched other women's journey because now I work with a lot of women, right? And I have a whole support system for women through this time. And I've really gotten to understand on a much deeper level what's going on, the good and the struggles. The first place I want to start is differentiating between menopause and menopausal syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say it enough because it just kind of goes in women's one ear and out their other.
Yeah.
Not sinking in. Menopause does not mean symptoms and suffering. That is
See,
menopausal syndrome.
you need to say that again. Just say that again, because that's something that we're kind of almost
Yeah,
expecting now, isn't it?
yeah, because that's the way it's spoken about. Symptoms, people are like, oh, it's menopause. And it's menopause is a natural transition that these bodies are designed to go through. And they
Hmm.
are, even are not designed to go through with very few symptoms. Right? That's so shocking
Mic
that
drop,
we
mic drop. Yes, it is
right.
shocking.
But when there's an imbalance in the system, and that imbalance is great enough that it interferes with hormone production,
Hmm.
it's thrown into something called menopausal syndrome. And
Right.
any issue that you might be having, it's like it gets put on steroids. So you may have this little digestive thing that's been going on for a long time, and all of a sudden you're like bloated all the time and you can't stand it. Or you might have had little joint pain, and all of a sudden now you're like really inflamed, or your hair might suddenly start falling out. All of these things might start happening. That's not menopause. That's menopausal syndrome. So that's the
That's
most important place to
that. I
start.
mean, that in itself. Sorry, that in itself is just groundbreaking. I'm sure for a number of listeners who never realized that there was two different things. And what you're
Yeah.
saying about the exacerbation of things that were already there, little niggly things, that's just like it's like menopause has put fuel on the fire, hasn't it? And just
Yes,
boom.
because low hormones increases inflammation, and inflammation increases every disease, right?
Wow. Yes.
And it's the backbone for every disease. So all diseases get magnified when we have the low hormones. So where a lot of doctors go is they go hormone replacement therapy. And that can be a strategy in some cases. But in many cases, it leaves the underlying thing that's disrupting the hormone production in the first place. It leaves it raging. And
Hmm.
so might feel a little better. Your hot flashes might get better, but you're not really solving the underlying health issue that is driving the low hormone levels. Because hormones go down post menopause. Your ovaries make
Yes.
a lot of hormones. When your ovaries stop making a lot of hormones, your adrenals take over. But when the body is under stress, whether that's physiological stress or whether that's, life stress, that impedes hormone production because the adrenals are always prioritizing to the thing it thinks is most important, right? And
Mm.
so that goes down, hormone production goes down, inflammation goes up, and now you're in menopausal syndrome, and you
Yep.
feel like all kinds of stuff. I call it the cray craze. Something that's just a little hot flashes or whatever, but sometimes,
Yes.
like for me, everything went completely crazy, right? And so what we want to do, there's three questions to ask. Okay. And then we're going to get into our topic in medicine.
No, this is great. This is great. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. But first question to ask is, are my hormones low?
Hmm.
Because if they are, we know that how low they are and what else is going on in our system really determines whether or not hormone replacement therapy is something you want to consider. Because if the hormones are really low and you've got other health issues going on, hormone replacement therapy can be the kindest thing at a low level just to get you back into the normal menopausal range while you fix everything else, right? So
Yes.
that's number one. So a woman comes in 47, 48, noticing symptoms, or a woman post menopause noticing symptoms. I run a hormone panel. I also run an adrenal panel. I want to know how healthy their adrenals are. If the adrenals are in pretty good shape, getting them back to being able to produce the normal level of hormones, not a big deal, not a problem. But if the adrenals are really tired, overworking, then we know we've got to really handle that in order to get the hormone production back up. But the third and most important question is, what is the thing that's stressing out the adrenals and disrupting hormone production? That's the question. Because when
Yes.
we that question, now we actually help a woman solve the core issue.
That's amazing. And have you, when you're working with women, you've had some fascinating discoveries of what is that trigger, what it is?
But like hot flashes,
Yeah.
more often than not, hot flashes are an immune challenge.
Ah. Wow.
So
Okay.
very often in the urinary system, see it all the time. Either a woman has an active low grade infection that is being missed by her doctors or not being treated,
Hmm.
or it's a latent one, something that isn't showing up in your analysis, but that's been in their system a long time. I had a woman come see me who was having terrible hot flashes, night sweat. She had been traveling. She had a parasite. We got rid of the parasite. The hot flashes returned to normal. I had a
Oh
woman
my
who
gosh.
she was really struggling with her weight. She had paid all these people lots of money to try and help her. Nothing was working. Within 4 days of starting her protocol, we had identified that latent bladder infection of her. Her hot flashes were gone and she was sleeping through the night. And within a few months, she was losing weight.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We don't
So
hear about these things. That's the thing.
well,
Unless you go digging and find the few voices out there like yourself, we don't
yeah.
hear this stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's menopause time. It's going to suck. Get with the game,
It's,
you know?
no, it's actually an incredible time for a woman for many
Yeah.
reasons. I had a woman reach out to me and she couldn't afford to work with me, but we did a single session and I sort of helped her identify what was going on. And bless her heart, she went out, she found this and she did that. And she just sent me a message saying, Cari, my flashes are better. This is happening. I'm doing this. I'm losing weight. Once you get the understanding of what's throwing your body off,
Mm.
it makes all the difference in the world. Right. And so we're here today to talk about libido because there's two aspects of a libido, and this is why I love to talk about it. There's a natural aspect that is changing,
Hmm.
and then there's balanced,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is when we're in our fertility years, we have biology that is driving our libido because our biology is geared for one purpose, and that purpose is find, mate, procreate. Find, mate,
Yes, right. Yep.
over it. And so every month, we literally, when we're fertile, our symmetry in our face changes and our pheromones change to make us more attractive.
It's crazy,
Right?
isn't it? Just
I,
amazing that that happens.
I remember crazy. And I remember as I was getting closer and closer to menopause and I had not had a child around when I always knew when I was ovulating, gosh, I got so horny. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's biology trying to do its thing.
Yeah.
Haven't done this yet. Come on, we gotta get busy, right?
Yep. That's right.
So what happens when we make the transition is that testosterone was being produced in our ovaries and a little bit in our adrenals. So those women that have low libidos and low testosterone when they're in the fertility years, you want to look at your adrenal system because it's probably not doing its job at producing the testosterone that it produces. But But as that shifts and now our adrenals are producing our testosterone, we are no longer biologically driven to procreate.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that fire, hot, fiery, God, I gotta have it. That shift,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah, it's not for all women, but it changes not for all women. And that's because it's not a biological imperative anymore.
Hmm.
So now what drives our libido? So not all women's libido goes down post menopause. Some women it's liberating because they didn't want children. They don't have to worry about getting pregnant, or they had all their children. They don't have to worry about getting pregnant anymore. So
That's right. Yep.
right. But for other women, the libido really goes down. Now, if you're a woman whose libido's gone down, the first thing we want to look at is are we still making testosterone? And
Hmm.
if we are, and our libido is not there, then what we want to do is start to get curious about our new form of libido because it's not going to be fiery like it was. So we've got to look at what turns us on now, right? Before it was just that, come on, you may remember it, right? That,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's do it.
Time of the month.
Yeah, just not that anymore.
Yeah.
And so for me and my husband, we had a really bumpy transition through this, and it was really hard for him. And a couple of things that I found was I loved the man so much that I wanted to keep him feeling good. Right. And so
Hmm.
what I did for me was I would never tell a woman to use their body when their body's a no. I would never tell them to use it. Right. I just never would do that.
Yeah.
However, what I do suggest that women do is they find the love for their partner and they lovingly love on them. It doesn't have to involve you, right?
Hmm.
And you tell your husband this, like, I want to love on you Is it okay if you do that? What I found for me, as I would do that for him, my libido would start to wake up in a new way.
Right. Yep.
That was one of my secrets, but you have to be able to tap into the love for your husband to
Yeah.
be able to, and then you have to get him to agree that, that for now, while you're going through this and you're figuring this out, that it's okay that you don't do the sex thing if it doesn't feel right to you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The other really important thing is that we've got to make sure that things are moist and juicy still, because if things are painful, you can't forget it.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
one of the things that helped me hugely was coconut oil,
Oh,
unrefined,
okay.
cold pressed coconut oil.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's people out there that'll say it'll change your pH, it'll do this and that. It doesn't. I used it for years. It's one of the things that helped me get through something called vulvodynia. It actually is omega 3s, and it provides some of the essential fatty acids that the body needs in that area.
So you're talking
So,
about the solid coconut oil that you get in a jar and yeah, it's fairly solid. Is that what you're
yeah,
referring
well,
to?
it's solid at certain temperatures, and
Mm-hmm.
then certain liquid. In Costa Rica, it's all liquid. So
Yeah.
we always have some by our bedside, and we put it in a wide mouth, smaller jar. And we
Mhm.
always have it available to us. It has it has a decent flavor. It has a really lovely feel. Other oils like olive oil, not as good because they've got like they've got there's stuff in it, and it's a little bit scratchy. So not
Right.
good. Whereas coconut oil is very smooth. It doesn't have that. So coconut oil is one of the tools that I have women use to make sure things are moist enough, because
Mhm.
and I use it no matter what. Like, I don't not use it because we don't always know when our tissue is dry, and then
Yeah.
we can do micro tears, and then we have to heal, and it can be very painful. I had one woman who, met a new lover and wasn't using any kind of, natural lubrication, and she ended up with micro tears and months, and then she didn't want to have sex again.
Yeah.
She was so off of it,
That
right?
association with pain, that's really going to be an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So we really want to make sure that things are moist down there, regardless of whether you feel like you need it or not. I recommend women at this time of life use it, because you can be fine and then you have a lot of stress in your life and suddenly you're not producing, and then now all of a sudden you're not. And I really recommend that we do things like coconut oil rather than like lubes, because lubes are chemicals, and what
Right.
chemicals, estrogens, and we just don't want to be messing with our healthy estrogen system, right? We don't want to be putting in chemicalized estrogens into your
Mm.
body. No, that's right.
Good
Um,
point.
yeah. So that's one strategy. Other strategy I found was we took some workshops, and you can't do workshops with her in the same way anymore, but with this woman by the name of Miss Jaya. But
Mhm.
what you can't do is you can go online, and she has a quiz, and it talks about the different sexual archetypes. And what she's identified is there's 5 ways that people get turned on. And so, like my husband, he gets turned on through the sensual, right? He
Mhm.
loves the soft sensual. Very many women are sensual. I'm not.
Yes.
So he goes like this to me, and I'm like, oh, stop it. Like, that's annoying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I'm energetic. So he can get close to me and think that he loves me, and I start laughing. I just, oh, all this joy like goes through my body. And for me, this is all for women, right? So I can get a bit graphic, right? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Well,
Okay.
yes and no. I mean, there are men that do listen in
Okay.
and
Well, I had something called vulvodynia, which
Mhm.
was the area was very inflamed. And so I couldn't move a lot. And that's actually how I found my orgasm again, because for many years when I was unwell, I had lost my ability to have an orgasm.
Mm.
So what I learned in doing this work is that I'm energetic. So the whole bang, bang, bang thing doesn't work for me. Stillness and really that close energy connection, that's what really gets me
Right.
going.
I'm glad you explained that because when you said energetic, I was picturing like what? Like bouncing around like a high energy.
Well, no, energy connection, right?
Right.
And then
Right.
another category is a sexual, and a sexual is somebody who just likes to get it on.
Mhm.
And then the third category is what they call a kink. And I was just working with a client, and she was telling me that there's kind of something wrong with her because she's likes kinky. And I was like, sweet, there's something wrong with you. That's just your thing. She's
Mhm.
like, I'm weird. You're not weird. That's your thing. And so when you and your partner learn your types, what you learn to do is meet each other there, right? So now I know I do a lot of soft touching on my husband and he loves it. And he knows you don't do that with me, right? But
Yes.
it's and the sexual energy. So when I wasn't in the mood that I wanted to be, I would use sexual energy and that's a turnoff for him completely. Right. So I learned not to do that with him. So really learning these archetypes. And I think she charges like $15 to take this little quiz.
Mhm.
And it really helps whether you're in a relationship or not to learn what turns you on. So that's the question, like, what really turns me on? Not what I've always done, not when I did when I was under the influence of the hormones of procreation,
Yeah.
because a lot of Humpty Dumpty in that, right?
Yep.
But what really does turn me on and what do I like? And you'll be surprised what a difference it makes. Yeah.
And it's probably something that's worth doing, even if your sex life is fabulous or you're happy as anything. I think it still would be interesting to do because of the sheer fact that you're not the same person you were 20, 30 years ago. So just for that alone.
And you know what? You may have been having sex in a certain way for 25 years that wasn't your thing.
Yeah.
And now don't have those hormones of, the hormones of procreation pushing you. Now you're like, and so that place to start is to get curious. Now,
Mhm.
another thing, I had a woman, a client actually just today. She's an artist, but right now she's being a full-time mom and she's not really artistically expressing. So a lot of the work we do is around getting into expression. So I suggested a book to her called The Artist's Way,
Mhm.
and she got it. She said, I'm doing one of the exercises where I write every day. You're just supposed to write 3 pages, no matter what. You just write.
Yeah.
You can say, because I don't want to do this so stupid, whatever. But you're getting your creative juices. So that's another thing for women to understand. It's really related to your creative juices. So if you are creatively not expressing yourself, start finding ways to do that. Yeah.
Mm.
Also, if you're not moving your body, everything's going to get stagnant in that area
Yeah.
and you're not going to have a libido. So you got to get yourself moving. Go take some Zumba classes or whatever it is in, groove or whatever it is in your area that you love. There's even ones you can do online. You got to get your body moving. Also really important. Practices that partners can do, they can look into are tantra practices
Mhm.
because they help us learn to connect. And for women at this phase of life, it is not about procreation, right? It's about connection.
Oh, absolutely. It's intimacy, isn't it? That on a whole different level to
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. And so we want to do things that promote that, right?
That's fascinating. So that kind of leads me into the next question though of um, how much is your emotions and your well-being and your mental health?
You're like, I ran my labs and I got no testosterone land, right? So when we're really low testosterone, low progesterone, low estrogen, low dopamine, all tank the
Mhm.
libido. And
Right.
so when that is something we need to address, you want to be doing all the other stuff while you're also addressing that. So
Mhm.
when testosterone is low, it points back to the adrenals aren't producing it because that's who's supposed to be producing it now. And then it points back to what's causing my adrenals to be so preoccupied that they're not producing testosterone, right? And that's the loop we're in. And so we start looking at why is my body under stress? Where is my body under stress? And what can I do to decrease my overall stress level in order to get my adrenals back online, right? Now,
Mhm.
I do not always recommend hormone replacement, but in the case with my husband and I, he actually asked me to go get my testosterone checked. And I did. And the woman I work with, she was like, I will not give testosterone replacement, even though it was low, until your estrogen level is up because testosterone is made into estrogen. And so
Mhm.
if you give testosterone and her estrogen's low, it'll just get made into estrogen.
Right.
And
Okay.
so with testosterone, it's kind of easy to go high. So I try to do everything else before hormone replacement with testosterone, whereas estrogen, I still do everything else. And if someone's really low, I'll go into the progesterone and estrogen replacement, right?
Mhm.
Testosterone, there's a nerve called tribulus, there's a nerve called maca. These are things that help boost testosterone levels. However, again, you've got to see what's interrupting the testosterone
Yeah.
production. Our testosterone levels are too high. Usually that's not the case when we're having a libido issue, but there are women that's too high. That's a blood sugar issue.
Right.
And you've got to get your blood sugar balanced out. Spearmint tea also helps bring that high testosterone down, but that's also a real thing because it causes the hirsutism, the hair to fall out, all of that as
Right. Right.
well. So those
Wow.
are some secrets to the libido is you gotta it's a twofold. One is you're learning a new way to
Mhm.
be happy, and two, you gotta make sure there's nothing interrupting the production of your hormones, right?
Gosh.
And when you address it with both of those, you can have a different but fulfilling sex life at this phase of life. And like I said, and for some women, it's better than ever, right?
Yeah. That's wow. I mean, there's just so many different things that play into it, aren't there? It's not just, I don't feel like it. There's just so many. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you're on a bit of a detective mission, aren't you? Trying to work out what it is, because every woman, it'll be something different.
Everybody, women. I just had a woman today who she's concerned about her weight. She's super fit and actually hasn't gained that much weight, but she's very concerned about it. And because it's different for her body. And she was saying, but every time on her form, she's like, wait, said to her, I pulled up a handout, the 9 factors that contribute to weight, and she has like 4 labs she needs to do. And she hasn't done any of them. And I'm like, this is why I need this lab, and this is why if we want to
Mm.
solve this, we've got to look at all of these factors and see what are contributing to the weight issue, right?
Yeah.
And so it really is. It's basically. I think nature did a very divine plan because we've moved to the wise one rule,
Yes.
and God knows we need some wise women in this world. And we've moved in this wise woman role, and the wise woman can't do her job well if she's not feeling well.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
right.
and she can't teach younger generations how to survive and thrive if she's not surviving and thriving herself. And so I honestly believe it was like a divine design. It was like, hey, ladies, you got to get things worked out here, you know, and get things balanced out. It doesn't mean we have to have it all together. I certainly don't. I'm still navigating some things with my body,
Yeah.
but 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 I am doing I'm doing a daily practice. I'm taking all the steps to help this body be as balanced and thriving as it can, as it can be based on my history, right? I have a long health history.
Like I said, there's just so many different facets to it. And I'm just wondering though, how do you keep these women positive and hopeful when their bodies are so different? Because it's not a quick fix, is it? It's not like your adrenals are going to repair
Well,
themselves, you know?
yeah, the one woman, it was 4 days, right? So
Yeah.
it is simple. I had another woman reach out to me, and she felt terrible, and she signed up for a package with me. It
Hmm.
looked totally like she needed the package, and it was just that her thyroid hormone was off, and we got that adjusted. And she actually felt great. And we
Oh my
used the
gosh.
time to do other deep work, but I was like, okay, now what are we doing? Because all of this stuff that I thought was going to take forever was just an imbalanced thyroid, and we got
Yeah.
that taken. So it's not always complex. It can be, but it's not always complex.
Well, that's
And
good to hear. That's encouraging. Yeah.
yeah, just doing the sleuthing that,
Yeah.
helps you figure out. I had a woman coming to me who was feeling like she was getting dementia, right? And, it took a little bit longer because when you're having memory issues, you don't remember to do stuff that I'm asking you to do. But eventually she's like, oh, I've got my brain back. Yeah. So it depends. Every person's an individual, and hence they need to be met that way. There's no one pill, ladies, that's going to fix
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's
Hormones
right.
alone are not the answer.
Yeah.
Um, like if hormones alone are the answer, you probably could get balanced out without the hormones, quite truthfully. And so yeah, it's just very individual for each woman. Hence the reason that I am in the late stages of editing my book, Your Menopause Midwife. Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Oh, well, you'll be back a third time for that one.
We talk about that one for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, oh gosh. So with the partners, like you said, explaining to your husband, to your partner that, look, it's not you, it's me, basically. Have you had women who have struggled with that side of it, or men, partners that have struggled to understand and accept where things were at? What encouragement would you have for them?
Yeah. So it really helps women like play this on podcast,
Yeah.
right? So it's not coming from you. It really helps women. But the most important thing is you've got to be coming with your partner from a place of love.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then it's going to be a battle. But you really
Hmm.
have to find the love for them and the care for them and understand that really if you're in a heterosexual relationship, in general, men's sense of self has a lot to do with their libido. You actually don't want a
Yes.
man who doesn't have a libido because that's a man who isn't in his fullness and is, like I said, converting his testosterone to estrogen, and that's a health issue. And you want a man that has a libido.
Yeah.
And if you're really like feeling that pushback, that emotional piece around libido, then you need to do some work to get that cleared up. I call it removing the bricks
Hmm.
that are between the words. So you guys can remember why you fell in love in the first place. And that's a great place to start. Go away for a night, a weekend, and just start by talking about when you met and fell in love and what it was like and what you loved about each other. Just start there. Just remind the hearts
That's lovely. Yeah.
do actually like each other, right? And
Hmm.
that's the first start of clearing out all the gobbledygook that gets in the way of our hearts that makes us feel like we don't want to be with this person.
Yeah.
I felt fortunate that I loved him. I knew my love for my husband was strong, and I knew that that was important for me, and that was what made me come up with the idea. Let me love on you, and I
Yeah.
get to see what a huge difference it made for him, and thereby I wanted to keep doing it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I mean, that's what you're saying. Let me love on you. I mean, that's really what a real partnership, a real long-term marriage is anyway, isn't it? It's wanting to put your partner's needs there at the
Yeah.
forefront. And
Yeah, and I think sometimes we're in relationships where our needs aren't being put
yeah.
as well. That's what makes it like a lot of women will say to me, I don't want to do that for him. Well,
Yeah.
there's a problem in the relationship, and that's
Yes.
that's you work on your libido, but that's not about libido. That's about not wanting to open to our partner,
Hmm.
right? Not wanting to blossom and flower for them, right?
Yes.
That's different. And that whether you're in a heterosexual or, same sex relationship, doesn't matter. If you're feeling that way, that's a deeper issue.
Absolutely. And of course, that's then going to affect your libido even more, isn't it? You'll have the whole vicious cycle thing happening there, won't
Totally
you?
will affect your libido. Yes. I remember I was in a relationship and I knew it was time to leave the relationship. I'm not advocating everybody leaves, but when I met somebody else and my libido, which had been dead, all of a sudden I was like, woo, and I
Yeah.
went, oh, it's
Yeah.
not like I had a story that it was hormones. And it was like, oh no, there was a part of my being that wasn't fully
Yeah.
expressed. That's when I started to transition, in the relationship. And it was time and it was the right thing. I'm with the right man now and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But sometimes our libido's not there and it really is about the dynamic in the relationship.
Look, can I just say at this point, I so appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability in speaking about what you've been through too. It's so different, I think, to the listeners because it's not just you as the doctor giving us clinical examples. I just want to thank you at this point. That's really lovely.
Yeah, when I was not well for a lot of my medical career, and
Mm,
for a while I would pretend, but my nurses that would come see me, they could always see like, "Are you okay?" And by the grace of whatever, people still got better under my care.
yeah.
But I was struggling. It was really part of my spiritual journey, my health journey. And I would hide it and I felt like a fraud. And one day I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I need to use this as teaching tools. And
Yes.
but my lessons through getting better and my struggles that now helps me support other people who are struggling and say, you know what, I get it. And I know you can be in a different place. I
Yeah.
know it with certainty. And so it doesn't help. I don't find it helps people for me to pretend. I find and I will be absolutely, transparent with people about it because it makes us real and we're all humans on this journey, right? Remember what medical school, I mean, not a medical school, I was studying nutrition. My teacher would always stand up there and talk about all these miracle cases. And I get so frustrated because I was a more mature practitioner and I knew a lot of the young practitioners were going to come in and they're going to hear that. They're going to go back and they're not going to have the miracles and they're going to feel like they're failing. These human bodies are complex and it is not always easy. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes there's miracles, but it's not always easy. And when you can hold somebody in compassion on their journey, you do them such a good thing. You've had some of your own health stuff. And it's just such a grace when we have a practitioner that their own egos out of the way, their
Yes.
own
Yes.
out of the way, and they're just in it with you and like, okay, let's figure this out.
Yeah. I think that's, you just nailed it. They're in it with you. And I think that's a real, that's one of those things that you can tell the doctor that's really in it with you, can't you? And the one that's not. And it's huge. But I'd like to ask you something you touched on before. Now, you talked about vulvodynia, and again, you're going to be vulnerable. I'll be vulnerable. It's something that I have struggled with hugely, particularly over the last decade and a half. How does the woman who has something like that, who has pain associated with sex, how do you get her past that and into enjoying it again, on top of all the hormone things and all these other changes and so forth?
Right. So a couple of things. First of all, coconut oil really helped me. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Secondly, I really recommend you find out your type because if you're an energetic, you
Hmm.
can actually get aroused without that part of your body being a part of it. And then you can teach your partner how to arouse you that way.
Hmm.
Um, and thirdly, it goes back. You probably know this, the gut, right?
Right.
The biome in your vulva is out of balance and it's creating inflammation. The biome in your gut is out of balance and it's creating.
Okay. Hang on a tick. Hang on. I'm going to stop you right there. I've actually not ever heard that before. I mean, we hear about gut microbiome in our stomach, and yep, it affects all systems, but I've never actually heard someone say, was it in the vaginal area as well? Can you just expand on
Yeah,
that a little
okay.
bit, please?
You've got a microbiome in your vagina, you've got one in your bladder, you've got one in your
Yeah.
mouth, you've got one in your ears, you've got one on your skin, right?
Hmm.
And so when you have vulvodynia, there's usually a combination of low hormone production. So the skin gets very thin and
Hmm.
brittle, mixed with a dysbiosis in your microbiome that's creating inflammation. And so you fix the vaginal microbiome through the gut microbiome.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, huge.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what, you're talking nutrition there when you say fix the microbiome in the gut?
First, I recommend getting the gut tested and seeing what the imbalances are, seeing
Hmm.
if you've got leaky gut, doing a food elimination diet. I have a
Yeah.
book called The Food Solution, which has a food elimination diet in it. Do a food elimination diet and make sure you're not reacting to any foods. So for me, a big part of my vulvar pain was dairy,
Wow. Okay.
big inflammatory piece for me.
Yeah.
So, and then I didn't do anything for that. I did everything for everything else, and that healed itself.
Wow.
Right?
Well, there we go. That's what I love about you. There's always like these little gems like, oh gosh, haven't heard that before. So
Mm,
wow,
yeah.
wow. But what about the mental thing? But what about that mental connection though? Like the woman who's had pain, who maybe is fearful of sex, or fearful of
Yeah.
intimacy
So with
because of that
that,
association.
you want to find yourself a good pelvic PT
Mm-hmm.
who can go in and preferably someone that I'm the same sex. If it's a masculine feminine thing,
Yeah.
if it's feminine feminine, maybe not, um, but where they can go in and be with those areas of pain and allow those muscles to open and relax and teach you
Mm.
to relax on the floor again because the pain causes chronic gripping in the pelvic floor.
Yeah.
And so so working with somebody who does that, really important to help relax that pelvic floor again. And then if you're, some women actually, their vaginas actually atrophy. And so you have to work with things called dilators to help open the vagina again
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not, painful when something enters you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, for me, what made a huge difference was this little tiny vibrator called, oh, I can't remember, but it's like this big and I would just use that on the clitoris, and that would really help the whole vaginal area relax. And then it would override sort of those pain sensors. And that's
Right.
how I changed. Another thing for vulvodynia that was really helpful was using aloe vera fresh. You cut the leaf open, you cut out the gel, and you put that inside you. Very
Right.
healing to that. And you can use that as a lubricant as well. Very healing. And then you need to approach it in a very gentle way. So maybe you start with a finger and
Mm-hmm.
then you get your partner to be willing to like just be with you, just touch and be with you and
Yeah.
not, and just don't elicit pain at all until you relax. And then you're in control. You give the permission to go a little deeper.
Yeah.
You give the permission. If you're able for them to go inside, then you ask them not to move. Just be in stillness
Yeah.
and then move just ever so slightly. Basically, it's retraining. It's like PTSD. It's retraining the body that it's safe.
Yep. Wow. That's brilliant. So many practical tips there. I know that there's going to be women who are just going to be like, oh, it's not just me. And oh, that's something I can actually start
To do it.
doing, which is brilliant to actually take action. Do you find that when these women come to you, that they're making the step, they're going out and seeking help, but do any of them have they talked to you about how they've felt quite isolated? Because it's not something women really talk about. We talk about menopause so much now, and we talk about, oh, lack of sleep, or oh, the hot flushes, or oh, the weight gain. That's a big one. You don't hear that many women actually putting up their hands and going, I'm having problems with sex and intimacy.
Yeah, no, it's true. They don't. It's true. There's not a lot of, and that's why I'm out here talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's needed, right? This is why I do these things. This is why I say yes. It's needed. We need this conversation out there as much as possible. So,
Yes.
thank you for having me and having me talk about it.
Well, I just said the same thing. I mean, I know, like I said, I live with chronic pelvic pain. It's certainly impacted marriage. It impacts how you feel about yourself as a person, and you're not good enough and not making the grade. There's all these things that come with any type of chronic pain, but when it's that area that really is part of your femininity and part of who you are and such an intimate thing, it's difficult. And I know that there would be so many other women out there suffering in silence, going through similar things and
Right.
thinking they're the only ones
And
and
they
they're the broken
know their
ones.
yeah, and just say no to their partner first because they don't think there's any way around it, right?
Yeah.
And my encouragement is to find ways to keep the intimacy alive, even if right now that's not okay,
Yeah.
because don't inflict pain on yourself, right?
Hmm.
That's right, but yeah,
Yeah.
see what you could, the connection alive.
Oh, powerful. Yeah. And it definitely is. It's something that if you could do it as a team, then you're not cutting out your partner. You're in it together. And hey, it's the old in sickness and health, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And you want to be on that journey together.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much for having me here. And it's just so fun. I love this topic about anything.
you said it before I did. I was going to say this to you the same thing. Thank you so much for being here and talking about this. I just think it's so important and so powerful, particularly for long termers too, who their bodies are different, things are different, and they don't know why. And the husband suddenly feels separate and rejected. And I just think it's a
Yeah,
powerful conversation
yeah.
that we need to be having these
Such a
talks.
such a conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So where can people find you online? And you've got a menopause program out there too. Could you tell us about that,
I
please?
have a menopause support system basically, and what it's designed to do is I talk about, as you heard me talk about, you know, there's stress in your body that's driving everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what the program is designed to do is help you identify what areas of your body are under stress, right? And so that because it's nice to know. And then you're like, well, now what do I do? Right. So you go
Yeah.
through, there's 7 modules, and each module is taking you through, you're filling out a check sheet, you're answering questions. There are links to lab tests depending on what country you're in that will help you identify, okay, oh, my digestion is really off. I got to work on that. Or, what's driving the stress in your body. It also has meditations for you to do and other practices for you to do that help. It has a mindset practice that, you kept talking about the mind.
Mm.
Helps out. There's a mindset practice that helps us unravel that old programming that it is, that are those trauma responses that don't let us be present time. So all of those things are in there that help a woman unravel this menopausal syndrome, get back to balance so that she can actually thrive, because this is an amazing time in a woman's
Yes.
life. I just want to on this
Yeah.
note, we get ourselves back.
We do.
Biologically in the fertility years to pay attention to others, to take care of others. It is all about others during this phase of life. It all comes back to us. So that's really beautiful. But if we're feeling curable, we're not enjoying it. So I really want to get women balanced out, and so that we need wise women in this world, right? As we
Yes,
look around the world, we're missing the wise women, right? And
absolutely. Yes. Oh, look,
yeah.
it's just fabulous. Look, thank you so much. And of course, all of Dr. Cari's details will be in whatever show notes on YouTube platform or on the podcast platform. You'll be able to find links where you can go back and you can check out her site, check out all her resources, and yeah, just so much there. And we will definitely be chatting again when that new book comes out. So everybody, please make sure to jump in her world, get on Dr. Cari's newsletters, learn about how you can be supporting yourself, supporting your partner, and absolutely thriving in your sex life as well as everything else. And so you can rock your midlife. And we'll see you on the next episode.